Mr. Hanna,
Mr. Evans.
do you have the details of the mission prepared before we start recording?
I do.
Okay, so how about you tell me what was James Bond's assignment before we start?
In this mission, Bond is requested to help a Czech general defect to the British side, and through the events of everything, he discovers that the whole thing was a fake.
And this is The Living Daylights. And we are recording. Welcome to Bond Never Dies. I am your agent, Jeremy Evans, along with long-time, still going, still killing these missions with me, Travis Hanna. And welcome to part 3 of this series where, you know, we're going through all the libraries of the Bond films. It has been a heck of a journey. We have finished the Sean Connery era. We have finished the Roger Moore era. Now we are in this, what we're calling it is a combination, because, like, we could have just done 2 episodes of the Timmy Dalton in that series, but we talked about, let's just go ahead and put it all together. It's about the same amount as movies as Roger Moore did, right?
Right. So we'll have the Pierce Brosnan and the
Timothy Dalton. So, but before we even start going on this, I want to talk about just overall, just in short sentences, how's the ride been for you going through the Sean Connery and Roger Moore? Would you say has it been a pretty good, dry, bumpy road, kind of curvy?
It's been interesting because I don't hold Sean Connery as high up as I used to, and I think I appreciate Roger Moore a little bit more.
Okay,
but I still don't think Roger Moore is high on my list.
Okay. I've been more focused on the villain side, and I have to say, I think Roger Moore's villains are coming out a little stronger than the Sean Connerys. Like, I think Bond might have some better, like, he might have some Bond. I think Sean Connery was a better Bond to me than Roger Moore, but Roger Moore's villains were a little bit more creative, from Jaws to Strongberg to what was Christopher Walken's character's name? But anyways, you can find out later. But there was just a lot more diverse in the Roger Moore, and it was more of like they just try crazy stuff. There was a lot of crazy gadgets, crazy cars, all this stuff,
right, and a lot of goofiness. That went on. You know, little hijinks, which made it entertaining, but at the same time, it was like, is that really what I want?
Right. It was with the Roger Moore. It was a tough beginning. It wasn't until like Spy that
Love Me.
Yeah, that was the one where it kind of went found its footing and stuck with it.
I think
the more
so.
The bizarre kind of, because Moonraker was bizarre. For Your Eyes Only was kind of a bizarre sleeper.
Yeah.
Octopussy was bizarre, you know, and then, you know, View to a Kill was bizarre too. So like they were all weird in their own ways, and I think that was like that's the Roger Moore I was wanting, I guess, for this one. So we're at the Timothy Dalton where this one kind of goes in. Would you say this is probably the movies that we're going to be talking about coming up for Timothy Dalton? Would you say these are the most serious ones out of the bunch?
I don't know if they're the most serious. I mean, we'll definitely. I think Daniel Craig is pretty serious. I think this brings it back into the mindset that Bond isn't as goofy. You know, like the gadgets aren't as goofy. They're a little more straightforward. It
almost feels like a reboot per se, but not a reboot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, of course, they keep referencing him being married and Her Majesty's Secret Service, which completely tears apart everybody's notion of, you know, the character is different people and Bond is the pseudonym that goes along with being 007. But overall, I thought Timothy Dalton did a good job. I do like his Bond.
And fun fact for the listeners, the reason why Roger Moore did not do this movie we'll be talking about is because he was turning 60 and he officially wanted to retire from the role. So good for him, and thank goodness that they decided to go with someone else, because the fact that they were considering him again was like, no, I'm done.
Well, I mean, the same thing has happened to Daniel Craig. You know, he's done playing it, and they just kept throwing money at him until he said yes.
Money talks.
So
got to get those Bond dollars.
It'll be interesting. Hopefully, it would be nice if this podcast ended with you and I going and seeing the next Bond film.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to aim for. And yet they haven't announced when the release of that Bond is.
Well, they just made a deal with Daniel Craig because he didn't want to do it, but we'll see.
Yeah,
that'll be neat.
It'll be good if it just flows perfectly. Like if they tell us next year in 2020 where this is landing on, then I think we'll have an ideal goal to try to meet that release, and then everything will be great. That'd be amazing. And so, but let's go ahead and talk about this mission, Living Daylight, and how does this start? Well, it starts with a training exercise, actually. But before that, I do want to say one more thing, Travis. I know this is actually coming on almost a year, so I want to say thank you for so much for sticking with the show for almost a whole year.
I think it's all the listeners. I mean, anybody who has been listening to these, we know they're not the greatest.
Yeah,
but I mean, if you're a Bond fan like we are, then you know we appreciate that.
Yeah, and don't forget all the Sean Connery and Roger Moore episodes are done, so please go back and visit them. I'll be reposting them on Facebook and Twitter. Just make sure you look up the In-Game Boss program, and just to see all these. Like I said, I'll just be reposting them until people kind of see more of it and everything like that. If you want to get a hold of me, you can always email me at theingameoffice@gmail.com or come talk to me on Twitter as RetroAmp07. So, anyways, now back to the training exercise. So it starts out with M on a plane, kind of giving a briefing.
Right. Telling Bond, we don't know who it is. It's 4 guys dressed in black, one of which is Bond. And they don't really say it until the end credits, but 002, I believe.
002 and 004. Or among those 3 guys.
So it's 2, 7, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to parachute and try to take over this mountaintop with paintballs. It's a legitimate training exercise in Gibraltar. And everything seems to be going well until one guy is caught and shot with paintballs and retaliates by shooting a guard with real bullets, killing him. And then he ends up actually killing another 00 agent that's there for training. So we don't know where this guy came from, but he wasn't part of the original 3 that dropped in, but he's dressed just like them.
Yes. And then who caught wind of it? Our opening person, James Bond.
Right. So Bond sees kind of what's been happening, and there's actually a pretty funny scene where he's running towards a guard, and the guard shoots him with a paintball, and Bond like pushes him out of the way, and the guard's like, right. Wait, you're dead.
And the fact that like that even later during the chase that he's on top of the vehicle going after the villain, another guard did the same thing to the car. He tries to like block his view by shooting the paintball at the car and everything like that. But of course that didn't work, and they blast their way through the gate, and they're slowly. I guess they're still kind of going down a hill-ish per se. Well, this is a pretty big mountain, right?
It's the Rock of Gibraltar, which is it is a mountain. But the truck they have stolen has explosives in it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they busted through one of the gates, the guards were shooting at them, and it actually caught the crates on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So Bond is fighting with this guy. He's cut through the roof. It's a canvas roof, and is swerved and missed pedestrians and everything, and ends up driving this truck off into the water. And as it's falling, Bond activates his parachute, and it pulls him out through the back. And then the truck blows up midair with the guy inside. So we don't actually know what happened here. But Bond lands on a yacht with this chick who's talking about how bored she is. Bond calls in to MI6 to let him know what's happened. And then it looks like her and Bond are going to get after it. And it cuts right into the opening.
This song is actually, we're back to the title. Not back to the title. I think we noticed that all the movies, Octopussy is the only one that doesn't go by a song title Octopussy.
Right.
So now we're back to the lineup still continues, presented by Aha, the people that did the song "Take on Me" from the '80s. I think it was '85 when it came out, or '83, '85. You can look it up. And they do the song "Living Daylight." "Living Daylight" was a song in the beginning that came off kind of weird. It took a second for the song to kind of hit its stride a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad the visuals were having a hard time matching the song. Would you agree?
Yeah,
it had a hard time matching it.
You know, yeah, it's I mean, it's beautiful women, barely dressed, and it doesn't. It's nothing crazy.
Yeah.
None of the crazy stuff that I like.
It's been weird. They've been ever since The Spy Who Loved Me. No, after Moonraker, they go back to the women are just laying down posing, and we put special graphics and stuff over it instead of like a lot of like things going on and everything like that. So this one they tried to do that, but the main thing about this was the guns were being shot a lot in the visuals, and some of the guns kind of shot off at the wrong time of the song was going. I don't know if you noticed that, Travis.
Yeah, I did.
And that kind of threw me off. So like I said, like the visuals we're having a hard time matching where the song was going. I think the song itself was very tough to just have a visual idea to.
Well, but what's neat is, throughout the movie, there are times they play the theme song. The theme song as a instrumental fits really well.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't overdo the James Bond theme too much in this one.
Right.
So I kind of dug that, but you're right. Like this opening it's very, for as far as James Bond is considered, very vanilla. Like nothing really exciting.
Yeah, and with that intro, it made me think about like, just like the title as we're going through this. I never got a quite understanding why it was called. The movie is called Living Daylight. Just like the intro, I didn't quite understand the intro, and it's weird because I think we had this theory of if you're not feeling the intro, chances are you're not really going to feel the movie per se. And I think that came from Your Eyes Only, because For Your Eyes Only was kind of and then the movie was kind of you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, but we'll continue on and see if that still holds true to it. So let's go straight into our next scene where it takes him to, I believe.
So he's at a symphony, and Bond has been asked by a Czech general to assist in his defection to the West. Bond was asked to be an assassin or a sniper to help this general escape at the intermission of the symphony. Mm-hmm. He meets up with another agent, and the other agent is technically the one in charge, but he doesn't want to give Bond too information because I think he's intimidated by Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason Bond is really there is because this general requested it.
Yeah.
So they leave the symphony just before intermission and go across the street where this British guy, his other agent, gives Bond a sniper rifle.
Yeah, basically all the stuff he needs to pull off this operation.
It's a Walther WA-2000, which is a real gun. Mm-hmm. We find out the guy's name is Saunders. It's Bond has asked him what his escape plan is, and the guy Saunders tells him it's need to know. So
yeah, like he was overly trying to be mysterious, but didn't need to.
Yeah.
So
Bond he's doing his job. He's being a sniper, and he sees this beautiful cellist that he was looking at while he was observing the general in the symphony. His eyes got caught by this blonde cellist, and it turns out that she is the assassin that's trying to kill him. So Bond, not convinced that she is a legitimate assassin, shoots her gun instead of her. The general gets into the building, and Saunders has put him in the trunk of a car. Well, Bond comes out and asks him, well, where's Koskov? And Saunders says, well, he's in the trunk. And Bond's like, they'll find him there. That's like obvious. He's like, I'm going to take the car. I'll meet you on this bridge.
You know, the Roger Moore Bond, we're like, okay, let's get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. He says, I'll get you on. I'll meet you on this bridge at midnight. And really what happens is Bond drives this guy to, again, we're going back to the oil industry.
Right.
These giant oil well pipes that transport oil across. It's the Trans-Siberian pipeline, I think. And there's an agent or a woman there that's helping him, and they load him into this device that's like a giant torpedo. It's made for maintaining these tubes, and they shoot him out of Czechoslovakia.
And by the way, this hasn't been tested before. He's the first person
one
to test it.
So he gets launched out of Czechoslovakia and is received by Q on the other end.
Yeah, Travis, before we move on to this, I noticed in your notes that you wrote down James Bond #1 new show.
Oh, because they're in Bratislava.
Okay.
And anybody who's seen Eurotrip will know that Miami Vice is #1 new show.
Okay. Okay. That's what I needed to know. That's why I wanted to check on that. Okay. So after all that, we get straight into...
Oh, wait. We completely missed a hilarious scene. So this woman who's helping them, as soon as Bond launches this dude's capsule, it's going to set alarms off in this guy's office. So she goes in there and straight up like lets him motorboat her.
Yes.
To distract him while all the alarms are going off. And then as soon as they all like shut off, she gives him attitude and walks out. But anyway, Koskov gets loaded into a Harrier jet, and they fly him off to England, where he is sitting with M and the other MI6 leaders.
Right. So from there, they head back to headquarters, where Bond is meeting up with Q and a new Moneypenny. And from there, we get to see them look for information about the blonde woman that...
The cellist.
Yeah, that was the sniper that Bond let her live and whatnot. So let's go straight into what Travis's favorite part for a second. The Q branch.
Yes,
so
sir.
What's in the Q branch in this episode?
So there's actually 2 instances we're going to head to the Q branch.
Okay.
In this one, Bond and Q are talking about the sniper, and he hears loud music, and Q gets really excited. So they go and check it out, and you see a scientist holding one of the old school boom boxes, and he hits a button, and this barrel pops out, and they shoot a rocket at a dummy, and it completely blows up. And Q just gets super excited. He goes, "It's something we're working on for the Americans. We're going to call it a ghetto blaster." And it's just really funny to hear Q say ghetto blaster.
That is probably by far my favorite side project that we have seen in a Bond, the ghetto blaster.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
And then let's remember the other gadget that, I'm trying to think. Are we there yet for the couch scene? The part where...
It's coming up.
Okay, anyways. So, from there, he has Moneypenny for, I guess, look into...
Well, Moneypenny tells him that M wants to see him.
Oh, that's right.
And, he needs to get out of the safe house, the Q branch safe house, essentially. Mm-hmm. And he asks her, "Hey, will you look for this woman or try to identify who this woman might be? I'm going to go see Q or see M." And while all that is happening, it looks like they're in some small town in England. I don't know.
It looks like kind of like a private estate, where all the agents go together.
Yeah, but before that, there's a milkman delivering milk, and there's a big shire. It looks like an old
country club,
like an old country village.
Okay,
and so this jogger runs by the milkman, turns around, and ends up strangling him with his earphones. Mm-hmm. And takes his uniform as a disguise so he can sneak onto this base where Bond is meeting M in Koskov, which looks like a British estate. But it's definitely a hideout.
Now, quick question for you, Travis. As we know, in this day when Bond was walking in, this is before this mysterious guy took over the role of the milkman. Bond was walking up to the house, and you saw a a rake that looks like a transmitter or something like that. And then you see all these agents out. Do you think these agents are working a double job? Like they're agents, but they have to do yard work at the same time to pull up of a disguise to you. Like you saw those guys with the riding the horses, like at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah. You think those are agents or just riding horses to kind of look like it looks like it just nothing's going on kind of thing?
I think that this is a training facility, and that there are guys that are probably training horseback.
Okay.
You know, at the same time, they're like the people are probably hired to be landscapers.
Okay.
And agents.
Okay.
You know, kind of like unassuming. So like keeps up the facade that this place is not a military installation.
Right.
You know?
Right. I guess it'd be interesting if I was like hired there. I was like, what are you going to be doing? You're going to cook until something happens, and then you're an agent. But for now, we're all hungry.
Right.
And
Right.
so let's go back to the milkman that happens to be make his way to the gate where he's being patted down.
Right. The guard at the gate asks where the normal guy is, and he gives him the excuse that he got sick. So this agent like pats him down, doesn't find anything, and tells him where to go and to be quick.
Yes.
You know.
So he makes his way back there while there's a meeting going on with Bond and M and Koskov, and they're basically just talking about like what is the next step they're going to supposed to be doing. So now, meanwhile, the milkman finally makes his way back up in there, back in the back, and he's talking to the cooks and everything like that. He ends up knocking out the cook. Unless, Travis, is there anything important that we need to know about this briefing before I move on?
Koskov gives him a list of names that he smuggled out of Czechoslovakia.
Okay.
With agents that they intended on killing. But that's really about it.
Okay, so now this mysterious guy, apparently his strategy of knocking.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It's more than that.
Okay.
There's a group whose slogan in Latin means "death to spies," and so they're killing spies specifically.
Okay. So, in the kitchen, the milkman comes in, and apparently he's been using this thing where he did to the milkman. He's taking the headphones that he's listening to, because this whole time he's listening to headphones.
Philips, by the way.
Yeah.
They're Philips
They are.
Philips.
Shout out to Philips.
Philips does the car stereos and the Walkmans in this.
Okay. Shout out to Philips. I guess Sony didn't make it there yet. So he ends up, and he used those Philips to the max, because he used the wires, their connected wires, to choke out 2 of the guards so far. And one of them is in the kitchen. And apparently he did not finish him off too quickly, because he was trying to shove him into one of those one of the small freezers, you know, most families have in their garage.
Yep.
You know, where they store all the meats and stuff like that. He didn't do it quick enough because an agent dressed like a servant, or he's just a servant, a waiter. He happens to catch him at the right time. They end up duking it out with a bunch of high kicks.
You know what? But this is a really good fight scene.
It is, because this is like, okay, I tell you why for the listeners. It's because this is the first time we had an agent that's not Bond that was actually a good fighter. Well, and I'll let you describe more about it.
I think it goes on longer than the Bond fights do, which I enjoy.
Okay.
So, like, at one point, there's an electric knife that this milkman guy, whose name is Necros, we find out later on, Necros is trying to kill him with the electric knife. He's got this guy pinned on a grill. So, like, his back is on fire, and then he, like, smashes his face into the grill, so he's got burns all over his face. This dude gets flour or salt or something and throws it in Necro's face.
Almost use every kitchen material.
Like, they are constantly fighting hot boiling water. Like, it is a really good fight scene.
Yeah.
Like, very believable.
With a lot of giant high kicks. Like, Necro uses a lot of kicks, because that shows me that this guy's probably a lot taller than he seems in the movie. Right?
Right.
And so he ends up knocking out the agent into, I guess, like a pantry kind of wall or something like that. And he's now making his way to...
it's important. He tells...
he's going to make a phone call.
Well, he uses the radio to tell the guy at the front that there's been a gas leak.
Yes.
And that the building could blow up at any time, and that they should sound the alarm to get people out.
Yes.
And then he uses his milk bottles, which have some kind of chemical in them, to explode. and he's throwing them and causing explosions.
So just for the listeners, Necro, apparently, in my point of view, he has definitely did some recon and knows that a milkman comes there all the time, so he can prepare to make these milk bombs to disguise himself as a milkman. Because why else would he have a bottle of milk?
Well, right. So basically, he takes he burns all of the information, all the written information that Koskov has given them. He takes a tape from a recording device, and he kidnaps Koskov, and they're walking out of the building as things are blowing up. So where things are blowing up, they're going the opposite direction.
Yes. By the way, did you mention on the on what he said in the walkie-talkie about calling a ambulance?
Oh, right.
Yeah, calling an ambulance hospital helicopter to come down
because Koskov actually got hurt.
Yeah.
And so he's making it's funny because the milkman had a white coat with an apron. Mm-hmm. So he has taken the apron off and put on a stethoscope. So now he looks like a doctor.
Yeah.
So here comes this medical helicopter with a gurney. They're putting Koskov on it, and he just looks like he's a doctor helping Koskov, when in reality, the whole thing is a setup for them to kidnap Koskov.
Yeah. To be honest with you, that's probably one of the best.
No, I think
it's probably one of the best setup for a guy to come in and get somebody like that.
And I think Necros is a really good henchman. In this movie, he really takes he doesn't screw around.
Yeah. So he's basically just like this movie. You notice that there's a lot of straight to the points and stuff. There's a lot of not a lot of little side things going on. It's more like we got in, we got out, we moved on. So after that, they're back in M's office, where M is very upset that somebody managed to get in and get Koskov like it was nothing.
Right.
Like we are the worst ever. By the way, I'd like to do a special shout out to the guy that got hurt in the kitchen. He did a great job, and we should never forget him.
That's right.
I don't know his name, but
guy in kitchen one guy, I don't know.
We'll call him Kitchen Agent Number 1.
Kitchen Agent Number 1.
Thank you so much for doing what you got to do, and probably, crazy enough, had probably one of the best fight scenes in this whole series.
Correct.
Yes.
Also, M shows Bond a carabiner with a label on it that says "Death to Spies." That 002 was found apparently next to 002's body, which was one of the guys at the training exercise.
So it all comes together.
Right. So anyway, after this, Bond goes back to Q. He goes back to Q branch.
Mm-hmm.
And there in this movie, Bond has a 1977 Aston Martin V8 Vantage, and Q tells him it's being winterized, which will be important later on. He also gives him a key ring, also developed by Phillips. It's a keyring finder, so if you whistle, it makes a noise so you can locate your keys. It was not very popular, but it was new technology for the time, I guess. So that was a real thing outside of this movie? Yes. Okay. Yes. I did not know that. In fact, those things still kind of exist. Okay. In different formats. Now Bluetooth technologies and whatnot, you can use that. Okay. But what's neat is if you whistle a certain tune, it produces a stun gas that will stun someone for up to 30 seconds. If you whistle another tune, it will explode. And then on the other end of the key ring is a skeleton key that opens 90% of the world's locks. That's insane. Yeah, I mean that's a bit Deus Ex Machina, but yeah. They don't use it again after this movie, so I'm okay with it. Yeah, bought you by Phillips again. Yeah, and so the car is by far, I think we'll find out when we go in more details. I think this is my favorite Bond car. It's a really, really nice car. Any fun information about the car, the Aston Martin? I don't want to say anything just yet. All I'm going to say is that Q has winterized it. Oh no! I meant like outside of that, like just that car in general. I mean it's an Aston Martin. Okay, all right. I didn't know if there was anything special about it or anything. No, like that. Nothing really. Okay. But as Bond is leaving, there's a guy sitting on the couch, or there's a couch, and Q has this guy sit on the couch, and the couch swallows him.
in like a new.
And then Q sits down, so you can't even tell that there was anybody there.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's go into Miss Moneypenny when she gets her little golden moment. She found some information.
She found out who the chick was. Her name is Kara Milovy. And she's in Tangiers, and she was actually a girlfriend of Koskov.
Mm-hmm.
So Bond decides that he's going to go.
And if I am correct,
or back to Bratislava.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe she is now the second Russian person in a Bond film besides Tatiana Romanova from Russia with Love. I believe now Kara is
love interest?
Like from a Russian Bond girl.
Right.
Yeah, so
I believe you are correct.
Yeah, just throwing that out there.
Okay.
So, moving on.
So anyway, Bond is just kind of following her around, trying to figure out what she knows. And they're on this like tram or trolley, and this guy approaches her at a stop, and they escort her to a car, and she gets in, but she's a celloist, so she has this cello case, and she leaves it on the tram, and Bond takes it into a bathroom and opens it up, and it's got a sniper rifle inside.
Mm-hmm. That's a big sniper rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he ends up going back to her apartment, wait for her, and when she gets there, he tells her, I destroyed the gun. I know you're not really a spy. You're not really an assassin. And she assumes that Koskov has sent Bond to come get her to meet back up with him in another country.
So in short terms, Bond's goal here is to fool her to thinking that he's basically sent by Koshnoff.
Well, I think he's not sure if she's in on this plot.
I meant for her point of view.
Right. I don't know if Bond doesn't know that she's not in on it.
Okay.
Or if she's completely ignorant that the whole thing was a fake.
Okay.
So Bond gets her to believe that they're going to meet they're going to meet Koskov in Austria. So he's got to try and figure out a way to get her out of the country. So they do this whole ploy where he walks to his car and she walks to a phone booth wearing a coat and her cello case.
Which I question. Is it possible that she could do it that freaking fast?
Well, I think she had plenty of time because she's wearing just like a hat and a big jacket, and this tram rolls up. They don't go very fast, and in that whole time, she puts her jacket and her hat on the cello case and runs off to Bond's car, and then Bond is driving away as the train is leaving the scene.
Okay.
So that bought him a couple of minutes. She says, I have to go get my cello from the symphony. And he's like, we don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the next scene is them getting the cello. And you find out that it's a Stradivarius cello. It's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, which Bond will later on use to track who's really what's really going on.
So let's get straight to our very first action scene, and that will be the giant car chase. So we're gonna finally see what this Aston Martin can really do. Travis, take us away, because this is part of your Q branch of what this baby can do.
All right, so Bond is being followed. They got the cops after him. He pulls up alongside and shoots this laser from his wheels at their car, and he basically cut the top half of the car off of the chassis. So the cops stop, and the whole top of the car goes sliding off of the wheels,
which I thought that was awesome.
I mean, it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
It's up there with the car being cut in half and Bond still driving it.
Yeah.
With even though there's no gas tank.
Right.
It's up there with that.
Mm-hmm.
Then they start setting up a roadblock. They're going to try and do whatever they can to stop Bond. But Bond his car has rockets, so he loads up some rockets out of the fog lights and blows up this tractor trailer and drives right through it. And then they end up on the lake. Bond has this shack like on his car, and he's riding around with it, and they're shooting at him. He loses a wheel, so he loses a rubber tire, but he uses the metal wheel to cut a disc out in top of this lake, which traps one car. He deploys skis that come out to help him escape the ice. And they come down this embankment, and the car gets stuck, and Bond has to destroy the car, unfortunately. He sets it to self-destruct. And
what are they going to do? How are they going to get out of this situation?
Who knows, man? Who knows? It's Bond. So they take the cello, and they open up the cello case, and each of them is on either side of it, and they're using the cello itself to steer. And it's just a chase downhill like they're sledding. And the Stradivarius cello actually gets one bullet hole in it.
And basically, to wrap it all up, they managed to escape by passing the borderline of Austria just in time with their badge hanging out. Like, hey, we can,
right?
Yeah, we can come in.
They basically slid right through the border.
Right, and this scene here, that scene, the whole chasing the cello can be questionable. It's one of the things that might sound good on paper, but it was kind of like, okay, we'll roll with it. And so before we continue the mission, let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about
we'll be in Austria.
Yes, and we'll figure out what is Bond doing there. We'll be right back. Hey, thank you so much for listening to this episode as part of the Endgame Boss program, a network of gaming and other variety shows. And remember, you can find all these shows on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Podbean. All you have to do is just follow and subscribe and enjoy all our other variety shows, like the Endgame Boss podcast, When Jeremy Met Nom and Finally Do a Movie podcast, Bond Never Dies, In the Cabinet Sessions. So thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of the show. And welcome back to Bond Never Dies. I'm your agent, Jeremy Evans, along with Travis Hanna. And we are now in Tangier, where some other things are going down. So let's continue from there.
Okay, so we're introduced to another character named Pushkin, who is a Czech general, or he's higher up than Koskov. And Bond, they make it seem like Bond has dealt with him in the past. But he's meeting with this character, Brad Whitaker, who's an American, who is gallivanting around as a general. But we find out he wasn't really a general. He just is very into military history. So much so that his house has wax figures dressed up as military people throughout history.
Yeah, like, Caesar, Hitler, Napoleon, those kind of people.
Right. So Pushkin has given Whitaker money for new weapons, and he's not happy. He thinks that Whitaker is double-crossing him. He's not sure how, so he tells Whitaker that he doesn't want to deal with him anymore and that he wants his money back. And so this kind of spooks Whitaker, and we cut back to a poolside, and Necros is there, and Koskov is there, and they're hanging out with these beautiful women, and Whitaker summons them to his lunch table, and he's saying, Pushkin pulled out, James Bond is investigating, I'm no longer comfortable with the deal we have, and Koskov convinces him that, well, if we kill another agent, it'll make it seem like Pushkin is the one doing it, and that will make James Bond kill Pushkin,
right?
Which will take Pushkin off of his back, and they can continue with the arms deal.
Okay, so with that, we go straight to a wonderful, beautiful montage, and it starts out with Bond coming out of the back of a produce truck with Miss Kara as they get on a horse carriage, and we get to see them kind of like have a what would you say, like a fun day out? So they end up like going to
Yeah, just kind of like a montage of them arriving in Austria and then heading to a hotel where the people in the I guess the hotel manager knows Bond and asks if he wants his usual room. You know, so it's definitely a safe place, a safe house that Bond uses,
right.
or has used in the past.
And then followed by, you know, taking her to an opera where she was the place where she wants to perform in the future. Ends up getting a dress for her for this special occasion and all this kind of stuff. And then from there, guess who popped up? Mr. Saunders.
That's right.
And Mr. Saunders wanted to know, like, why the hell are you with this woman?
Right. This is the assassin that tried to kill Koskov. Why are you with her? You know, he was a little upset that he didn't kill her in the beginning, and Bond said, you know, he scared the living daylights out of her. You know, it's the title of the movie.
Boom.
Yeah, and basically he kind of befriends Saunders here, gets Saunders more on his side, and says he needs passports for both of them. He hands him some pictures they took in a photo booth. And to meet him at this carnival with all the documentation and an explanation on who paid for this cello, because it's a Stradivarius, it's very expensive, and that he thinks the whole Koskov thing was a setup.
Yes.
And that there's an underlying thing that's going on. So he arrives right as Bond and Kara are getting onto a giant Ferris wheel. The Ferris wheel breaks down. We're waiting for them to come back down, and Saunders was waiting for them inside of a coffee shop or something. He's having a drink.
Yeah, I guess that's the word. Yeah.
And Necros is there, looks like a guy selling balloons.
Yeah.
And
with his headphones on again.
Right, and he's watching Saunders. So the Ferris wheel comes back around. Bond gets off and he goes in and he talks to Saunders. Says, "Hey man, I really appreciate your help. Like Saunders gives him a smile, like they're going to be buddy-buddy. And right as he's walking out of the sliding door, Necros hits a button, and it slams right into Saunders and kills him.
Poor Saunders. Poor Saunders.
Bond's looking around, and he sees a balloon that has "Death to Spies" written on it. So he jumps over.
He saw another group. He saw some balloons flying, hoping that was Necro walking away with them. But it ended up being a kid, and he almost killed that kid.
Right.
And the kid and their mother ran away. And Bond is very upset that he said, "Tomorrow we are leaving in the morning." Even though Kara said she didn't want to go, but he says, "No, we need to go right now." Bond is pissed.
Yeah.
So
he just lost an agent.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. So once again.
So
back to Tangier.
Cuts back to Tangiers, and Bond is actually spying on Pushkin, with he's following him around, keeping his distance, and he pulls out these glasses that have adjustable lenses that look like a binocular.
I like them
over each eye. Yeah,
I like them.
They're not bad, not bad for the time, especially.
Yeah.
So Bond sets up this whole deal where
he basically kind of ambushed Pushkin's, right? Like Pushkin goes into the room and Bond was already behind the door because his girl was a little frightened, and he told him to go to the bed and everything, and he wanted some information because he didn't trust Pushkin's, but Pushkin's was kind of putting on the, well, first of all, he kind of sent an alert for a guard to come, but he ended up knocking out that guard by getting his girl, tearing off the girl's clothes so she can be half naked, and the guard came in dumbfounded, knocks him out, and then finishes talk with Pushkin's about basically why should I trust you, and Pushkin was like, I'm not part of this, you're gonna have to trust me, basically you're gonna have to pick a side. You either trust me or you don't trust me.
Why would you trust Koskov over me?
Right,
because you've worked with me in the past, basically is what he says, and Bond tells him that if I did trust Koskov, you'd be dead already.
Right.
So Bond is really just investigating, trying to figure out what's really going on. And so they set up this whole ploy where Pushkin says, well, in order to catch Koskov, I guess I have to die. And so it cuts to the next scene where they're at the opera again, and a symphony, and I'm sorry, he's giving a speech.
Yeah, that's what it was.
He's at some kind of special event where he's giving a speech, and Bond assassinates him before Necros has a chance. And we find out that the whole thing was a setup, and just to make Koskov believe that Pushkin has been assassinated. So Bond's escaping from the police officers on the rooftops, and
he gets a nice little welcome from two agents. These two beautiful women driving a car that actually saw Bond from a distance. And
right, Bond's looking at postcards, and these girls pull up in a convertible, and
actually, if you want to come, like kind of like, hey, you want to come party with us? Like,
right.
It's kind of like those funny seeing you here. Hey, you want to party with us? You're handsome. He's like, yeah, let's do this. So he drives in, ends up being a trap. These two girls pull their guns out, makes you believe, like, are they working under, the Russians or something like that?
Right.
But it led them to a boat where our special guy from the CIA makes a return again, Felix. And for people that might not know, Felix has been in 10 films, including this one and the next one, License to Kill. So, like, I like to dedicate this moment for Felix. Good for Felix for sticking through this thing, because I mostly forgot about Felix in most of these movies until they kind of brought him back to the map again. And you'll understand later in the series what we mean. But he gets to meet up with them, and Felix is upset because, like, hey, we've been kind of on this, and you're kind of screwing up everything that's going on. You're basically, Bond, you're being yourself, and I hate when you do that because you screw up everybody's plans on the operation. So
Bond meets with Felix. Basically, the CIA has been tracking Pushkin for a while, and Felix is asking why Bond is interacting with them, trying to share notes, and Bond kind of explains the situation. Then
somebody was not happy while this was all going on.
Right.
And who was that? Miss Kara.
Right.
Miss Kara was very upset.
Kara's been at the hotel ever since.
They flew in.
Right. So it cuts to Whitaker's estate, and Koskov gets a phone call, and then it cuts to their hotel room. It cuts to Bond and Kara's hotel room, and she's angrily playing the cello. And he's trying to talk to her. She's made him a martini, so she pours him a martini, and they're sitting there talking, and he's drinking, and he finds out that she's contacted Koskov, that she has drugged his martini, and he explains to her just before he passes out that he was the sniper that didn't kill her because he didn't believe that she was a threat. And so he passes out basically, and Koskov and Necros come in and kidnap him.
So after that whole fiasco, they are on a plane heading to one of the bases where Koskov and Necro were heading to.
They're on their way to Afghanistan. And,
it was Afghanistan. Okay.
They're pretending to be hospital staff transporting a heart, and they show the heart to, I guess, customs inside of a giant cooler. And Bond eventually wakes up on the plane next to this thing. Kara is like apologetic, not realizing that she didn't realize what was happening. And they open the box and see this heart beating, and it's surrounded in ice, and Bond identifies that there's diamonds hidden in the ice. And Koskov is getting a hand Bond over to Soviet forces that are stationed in Afghanistan. And when he hands Bond over, he also hands Kara over. So this whole time, Kara was under the impression that Koskov loved her, and it was this moment that she realized that he didn't, because he gave her over to the authorities. Yeah. So Bond's getting beat up in jail. There's a guy already in a jail cell.
He's important.
And Bond hands the guy his keys with the Phillips key ring on it. He does the special whistle, which makes the gas come out, the stun gas come out. And so the guys get stunned.
Such a forced setup, right? It felt really forced in there. It almost like they forgot about the key, and they're like, we got to do something So let's make this scene happen. So
Right.
So out of all of this, he ends up fighting out with one of the guards. I mean, one of the guards that was running the little prison area with the help of the Iranian guy and everything like that. Ends up freeing him and end up heading back to the camp because apparently he was one of the leaders.
There's a guy in a prison cell that helps Bond, and Bond throws him the keys, and Kara and Bond steal one of those cars that has the staircases on them that they pull up next to an airplane, so you can climb up the stairs and get in. And they drive that all the way over to the border of the airport, so they can climb up it and jump over the fence. And right when they jump over, these guys pop up out of nowhere, and this guy that was in the prison cell hops over and tells the guys that no, it's cool, he helped me escape. And they take him back to their encampment, I guess it would be.
I guess let's not be fancy. Let's just say it's a camp.
But they're resistance fighters essentially.
Yeah.
Bond is looking for a group called the Mujahideen, and it turns out that these guys are them. Bond wants to go back before Koskov leaves, and this guy who he freed named Kamran, Camran, won't let him go, and wants to take him into the mountains the next day. So Kara and Bond have this whole discussion where he basically breaks down to her everything that's happened, that the whole thing was a setup. And the next morning, they're going to go out to the desert with these guys. I think
that was the perfect timing where we say that's where he bonded and move on.
No, there you go.
Okay. I felt like we didn't get his Bond moment, so we needed that in there.
So Bond is out in the desert with these guys, and they all have these packs that have red crosses on them, look like medical packs. Bond sticks a knife in one and finds out that it's opium, and that he's trading that these guys are trading opium for weapons. Koskov is buying opium with the money from Pushkin for the weapons. So essentially what's happening is Pushkin's money is going to buy the opium, which is going to be used to double their money. So Koskov will be able to buy weapons and have extra money
for basically any other accessory stuff.
Right. So basically trying to double his money. So the diamonds are a trade for the opium.
Yeah. So from there, Bond managed to sneak on one of the trucks during the meetup for the exchange and whatnot, and they drove off. Kara got worried and tried to convince... Well, go ahead.
He's talking to Kamran and asking, how can you be part of this?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I forgot about that
Kamran tells him that, we have to have weapons to fight. This is all we got
to do.
Right, basically. So he asks, what if you got your money, but the opium never made it to where it was going? And Kamran was like, as long as we get our money, we don't care. So he asked Kamran for a couple of plastic explosives.
That's it. Yeah.
And so Kamran gives it to him. Bond's helping him load the truck. And he's going to hide this plastic explosive inside one of these bags. And as he's doing so, the truck starts taking off, so he gets stuck inside the truck.
So at that point, the truck is driving off. Kara's worried, of course, and she's trying to convince the leader. What's his name? I'm sorry.
Kamran. With a K.
Okay. Kamran, about we need to go after him. And he at first he was hesitant about it. He's like, I don't know. So she says, I'll do it myself, takes one of the weapons and starts riding off. And then he's like, okay, forget it. Let's just go. So everybody started chasing after as they head to the base. Meanwhile, they're at the base. Bond is trying to figure out how to get out of the situation he is in. So now this truck managed to make it to one of the planes where Koskov is going to be flying off it after all the opium is being loaded in. So Bond managed to merge with the people, slowly loading up the plane with all the opium. So he managed to get in, and he managed to get the bag that was cover up for where his bomb is in to go inside and set it. But that all kind of that kind of backfired, if I'm correct, because someone was coming up inside the plane.
Necros recognized Bond.
Yeah.
And turned into a shooting match. Bond is on the plane with the bomb.
Everybody started running because he started shooting like a maniac with an AK.
So Bond is trying to hijack this plane, but there's a wheel block. So it takes him a couple of times to get over the wheel block. And during this time, Koskov and Pushkin... Koskov and Necros have stolen like a vehicle, and they're going after Bond. Necros ends up... Necros jumps towards the plane, but we don't see what happens. Koskov gets blown up.
Yes.
And we find out that Necros is on the plane.
And by the way, just for the listeners, while we're discussing this, there's a huge war going on at the base. Just throwing it out there.
Right.
There's a whole war battle. Like, they're going back and forth. It included like one of the construction trucks with fighting one of them. Just a giant shootout in all of this. So now where we're at is you have a race to get to Bond between Kara and Necro and Koskov. And then that's when he mentioned, that during that moment, he managed to get Kara onto the plane.
Right. She's in a Jeep, and she drives right up through the car. It's a cargo plane, so he drops the cargo doors in the back.
Yeah.
She rides this Jeep right up in there.
Now, during that moment, another plane was coming down, landing. Might be another exchange going on. We don't know what that plane is, but they managed to cross paths perfectly, or by the skin, the chin.
Bond lifted up the plane.
Yeah.
So his giant cargo plane goes above this one that's landing.
So now they managed to make it up in the air, James Bond and Kara. Now the other plane, it was landing, but it ends up making a collide with Mr. Koskov, because where was Necro? Necro managed to make it also to that plane before it happened, and somehow Koskov lived through that. Don't ask me how, but he lived through it because I guess the wings itself kind of clipped, but one of the wings stuck with the Jeep while the other plane was going. So good for him. And so now they are now up in the air. That's done. So now we're up in the air with Kara and James Bond, where everything was going well until they started hearing some noises, and Bond was like, "Okay, I got to go do my thing." So
Bond had to go defuse the bomb.
Exactly. So I think that's where that noise came in. He's like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about the bomb."
Right.
So he went in there, and then we get this whole giant fight scene with Necro that ambushed Bond that led to one of the most craziest stunts scenes we've seen so far, and that was where the cargo doors opened up because Bond opened it up, and they end up flying, like holding on to the carriage with this, I guess you would say like a net, right, with the cargo stuff in it.
It's a giant cargo net full of all this opium, and the bomb is in there too somewhere.
Yeah, and they're all hanging. Like Bond and Necro are all hanging. They're trying to make their way out of it, but they're both fighting at the same time.
This whole cargo net is literally outside of the plane, and they are like holding on for dear life. Yeah, and kicking each other and trying to survive.
So with that, they're slowly making their way up, and then Bond managed to get the upper hand, of course, and he started cutting the rope, letting go all the other like opium. So now it's just the net itself, and then Necro managed to get a grip on Bond's foot, where Bond just needed that inch to get away from him. So what did he do? He get the knife, and he started cutting the laces out of his shoe, making Necro lose more grip. And then after after Bond succeeded with that, Necro just flew off. Yep. And he's done for. So that's complete, except for one thing. Sadly enough, the bomb was still on the plane somehow. So Bond managed to search for the right bag and clicked it and turned it off with 4 seconds left. And so from there, Bond managed to make his way up to Miss Kara, and everything was going well, except one thing. They were running out of fuel. So what were they going to do? So the plan was...
This is something that's kind of funny, because they're looking around, and Bond says there's nowhere to land the plane. And you're looking around, and it's all mountainous. And then it cuts to a giant flat area where they
Yes.
find a place to land the plane, and it's just like this. What?
So but before that, before he landed on it, of course, he made one more last trip, and that last trip he did was the Iranians were getting chased by
A tank.
Basically the military with tanks and by tanks and stuff. So Bond decided to drop that bomb, his opium, the bomb that he put in the opium bag. Kind of did a little drop off because the Iranians were being chased by the tank on a bridge, and he managed to destroy the part of that bridge with the tanks with it. The Iranians were celebrating and everything like that. Then that's when they came to a realization that they were running out of fuel, and they had to land, and they had to figure out what the plan was, and they decided that, okay, right before it was going to crash, we're going to eject yourself from the Jeep. So all cargo planes have a parachute that shoots out out of the cargo, and that was their moment to do that. And as Travis noticed is that they managed to be on a flat land that happened to be on a road where the Jeep landed on, and of course our cargo plane crashes right into a mountain. So from there, they were talking about they end up heading towards. Do you remember in your information the town they were going to be heading towards to?
I believe they head back to Tangiers.
Okay, so they end up to Tangiers where they can kind of do a nice rest and a break. But you would think that's happily ever after. But there's still one thing going on. It's like, what happened to Whitaker? So Bond decides to make a personal visit to him, where Whitaker was playing, a little bit of I guess his rendition of Risk, per se. And from there, he's just having fun with this stuff and everything. Like Bond is kind of telling him, okay, the game's over and everything like that. But Whitaker managed to get the upper hand by ejecting a drawer on the opposite side where Bond was looking at him, and these guns were shooting out. And Whitaker managed to use a machine gun, but on this machine gun had a clear, like, protective, I don't know what the material is, but basically it was like a bulletproof.
Right, it's like it looks like plastic, but it's bulletproof, so he can see through without having to get worried, without being worried about being shot in the face.
And this was a heck of a shooting scene because a lot of stuff got destroyed and everything like that. But Bond managed to fool him by putting the key, and he finally put it to good use, on this statue that he didn't see. He whistled it, it blew up, landed on Whitaker. Whitaker crashed into his own little plaything, his risk board plaything he was doing, knocked out. Pushkin's comes in, everybody comes in, and then Koskov comes in, trying to play dumb, talking about, oh man, I'm so glad you're okay and everything like that, but everybody knew about it. And Pushkin said, don't worry, I'll take care of you, leading him to take him away. And then that finally leads to our final scene where Miss Kara, I believe she is playing at the place that she wanted to play while they were in Austria, if I'm correct.
Well, right. She's back at the symphony. She's playing the cello with a bullet hole in it. Mm-hmm. When she's finished, Kamran and all his guys show up.
Kind of like a reunion.
Right. And they're like, oh, man, we saw her when we missed your symphony. Pushkin introduces her to General Gogol, who has been a Soviet general from previous.
He's
James
been all
Bonds.
over the place.
And Gogol tells her, I'm sorry, M. I think M takes her to Gogol, and Gogol tells her that she has dual citizenship, so she can leave. Mm-hmm. She's not stuck in Czechoslovakia, so she goes to her dressing room
because she was still sad. Like, this is fine, but it's missing something.
Right. So she goes to her dressing room, and Bond is there waiting for her, and they make out, the camera pans, and that's the end of the movie.
So, and that's Living Daylight for the listeners and everything like that. So, overall, how do we feel about the movie?
Overall, I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
Not super high on my list, but I was definitely entertained. Thought it had really good pacing. I thought it had a really good story. The gadgets I thought were decent. I really liked the car. I wish we would have got more with the car.
I felt like the movie had a good pace, but it was still missing two important things to me. And one, there was really, honestly, to tell you the truth, to me, there was really no villain. I mean, Necro was kind of holding the torch for a little bit, but to me, Necro wasn't to me as strong in the first half that he was in the second half. And the other part was I think the Bond girl became more of a. I think the Bond girl really slowed down the film in this one compared to that. Like they were really focused on this love interest and really sticking with this. That's why I say it kind of reminds me from Russia with Love, because that was another attempt of trying to put two characters together on this. And granted, she did more work than Tatiana did in From Russia with Love, but at the same time, she didn't really do anything else. Here's a woman that was a sniper, but like after that, she became like the damsel in distress. Like I would think that maybe like she would have done more stuff or gave her more stuff to do with a gun because she had to learn something.
Right.
And so that's my way to look at it. Anything else?
No, not really. I think this movie wraps up pretty clean.
Okay. So how do we feel about we'll talk about key points. So how do we feel about Timothy Dalton being this Bond here? Was he straight to the point? Was he still kind of goofy? Was it hard to take him in? What's your feel about?
I like his James Bond simply because he wasn't too much on the puns. You know, where Roger Moore, I felt was a little more lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only pun we got in this one is after he killed Necros. He told Kara that he gave him the boot, and literally because Necros pulled his boot off, he gave him the boot.
I think that Timothy Dalton right now has the very hardcore side. The smoothness is a little edgy.
Right.
It's a little I don't know, like it's hard to take him seriously that like him and Kara were a couple there, because like him is like, I don't know, I feel like you're way too tough to be in love like this in particular scenes. Just the way you act. Like I'm not seeing that smoothness as much. I'm just seeing more of the action side of you. So I don't know about you. I don't know if you saw any smoothness at any point. But I think the film was just more demonstrating him to be more of an action star than more of like a little bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, all the opportunities they had, they went through them really quick. Like in the beginning on the yacht, here's a woman complaining about being bored. And James Bond drops in.
Yeah,
you know, at the end of the movie, it's hey, we've went through this whole stuff together. Let's just kiss and make out.
Right.
Whereas the Roger Moore stuff, like maybe it was because it was 60s, 70s.
Yeah,
you know, it was more hippie, free love. But I guess 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I liked the way Timothy Dalton did his Bond.
Okay.
In this movie.
Bond girl, Kara. How do we feel about her? I think she was, and maybe I'm wrong, I think she was a bit of the weak. She was like kind of the weakest link of this story. I think she was a big slowdown for this for me, like I mentioned before. I appreciate that she did get her hands a little dirty. I mean, she went into the war battle and all this kind of stuff, but you never really see her do anything other than that. She was more trying to stay close to Bond more than actually like doing something for Bond.
Well, I mean, she is a musician. You know, she's not like a secret agent or anything like that. Mm-hmm. You know, so I thought she did. I thought the character was okay. But yes, as far as a Bond girl goes, she didn't kick a lot of butt or anything like that.
I guess to me, it's like once you give a woman a weapon, I expect that you know some kind of skill or something like that. You know, because that shows me like, why were you a sniper in the first place?
Well, but that's the thing is, it was all she was shooting blanks. It was all a decoy.
That's true too. That's true too.
Like,
so she was trying to pretend something that she was not.
Well, but it's because Koskov got her to do it.
Yes.
In the belief that he would leave and then get her and they would both be out of Czechoslovakia.
Yeah. And so let's go to our Bond villain. There was no Bond villain, so we're going to hit it to the henchman Necro, which Necro should just let Necro steal the show. To me, Necro had a really good entrance, but he was more of the quiet and action person. Like, he really didn't talk that much. He was really more of like going in, getting the job done, and get out. And I would have liked to see more of that, but I think, like I said, it kind of slowed down halfway. Because if you think about it, like, it was a lot of Bond following people and all this stuff, and the Necro came in only at the times when he needed to kill somebody off, and then he just rushed off. You never got to see him like really step up to take the role of the main villain. To me, I don't know how you felt about that. Because Koskov was kind of falling off.
Well, let's see, Whitaker, Koskov, and Necro together, I would say were the bad guy. None of them really menacing. Necro definitely willing to get his hands dirty. I did like that. I mean, he was pretty inventive in the way he killed.
Yeah.
You know, the sliding door.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't know. I thought it'd be kind of interesting if he ended up killing Koskov himself and then just trying to take over from there or something.
That might have been interesting.
Just something for Necro to stand up. Like, he could have been that Jaws level.
Right.
But he got held back.
Right. I definitely feel the fight in the kitchen with the butler guy was better than the fight with Bond at the end.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like, they really didn't push Necro to the max to fight Bond. Like, that plane scene could have been a lot better.
I agree.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think anything else on our list. We already did our Q branch. We already talked about the song and everything like that. Yeah, I think that's it for this mission. Is this in your top 5? Does this make it in your top 5? Or you're kind of hanging back on it? It's not in my top 5.
No, it's not in my top 5, but I was definitely entertained.
Okay. All right. And for our listeners, thank you so much for listening to the show. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to email me at theingameoffice@gmail.com. You can also talk to me on Twitter, and you can also see me on Facebook. Just make sure you look up the word In-Game Boss Program, and you can find all our shows on Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, and Apple iTunes. Just make sure you type that in. And also, too, for the listeners, YouTube is a little bit different for us, so if you just want to type in Bond Never Dies on YouTube, you can find it there, too. So you can search for In-Game Boss Program so you can see all our shows, or you could just type in Bond Never Dies, and you'll find all our episodes off of there. And so, Travis, once again, thank you for coming on for this mission.
Absolutely.
And we will be back on our next mission.
Ba-da, ba-da.